Yes, we're going live. Fun to do these live. We've been doing them pre-recorded for the longest time. There's something about the excitement, the energy of going live.
I agree.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Gallagher, scaling coach, host of the show. Our show is all about how to scale and grow your business. Today, we're talking about leader happiness, how to be happy as a leader. I love this topic. We have Shawn Johal joining us. No matter what the economy is doing, what industry you're in, no matter what part of the world you're from, we want to help you scale and grow and enjoy the process, which is why our topic today is so bitchin', awesome, cool, whatever description fits your boat. You can find hundreds of episodes on this subject of scaling up and all the tools and things at scalingcoach.com. Subscribe to get these updates every week. You can also go to scalingcoach.com and download back episodes, look at the show notes, the tools that we reference, that kind of thing, and find all that stuff. So every week we'll bring something. And then increasingly, we're going to do live since it's COVID time. All right, so listen in now as we talk with Shawn Johal. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Really appreciate it.
Guys and gals, Shawn, you're in Montreal, yeah?
Yeah, I'm based out of Montreal.
Based out of Montreal. And you'll hear some of Shawn's background and stuff. Shawn is a coach like me in the world. He's got a new book out. Shawn, what's the book title?
The book is called The Happy Leader.
The Happy Leader. So I've studied a bit about happiness and the practices for happiness and all of that kind of thing. And I am just super excited about the topic and what we're going to talk about today. So as we get into it, I'd love if you could just kind of tell some of your background, how you came to write this book, what made you think you ought to actually get something out there. I know that like maybe we go back to the beginning and then kind of go through your journey because it speaks to the book. So
absolutely. So I'm going to start before I was born. This is going to be a long discussion. No, I'm just kidding. But I will mention the reason I'm going that far back is that my name, which my Indian name is actually Sukraj, actually means the happy leader. And that's where the book title came from. So I figured I'd go a little into the past there. Suk in Indian means happy, and King, Raj means king or leader. So that's where the name came from. Actually, initially I had called it the Happy King, and then Vern told me that was crazy. And he said, the name's sexist, and I don't like kings, so change your name. So that's how the new name came about. But the story goes that, I've been an entrepreneur for about 11 years, started my business. I've been also part of the Entrepreneurs Organization. And, as we go on this journey, and I know, Bill, you're very connected in the community as well. What I came to realize, one activity we do as entrepreneurs is that we get into a room and we start sharing things. And the first thing we do is we share one word open. And, I'm a positive guy, so my words are always, energy, motivated. But the other 7 or 8 or 10 entrepreneurs in the room, the words I always hear are stressed out, burnt, overwhelmed, freaking out, can't keep up, no balance. And so I kept hearing these words and over and over, and it just led me to this quest to understand why is it that entrepreneurs along the way seem so unhappy during this crazy journey that they're living through. And that led me to start writing my first words of the book, which started 8 years ago, to be honest with you.
Wow. So let's talk about tell us what was the do you still have the old business, or are you full-time?
Yeah, I'm still involved with that business. It's an LED lighting business.
LED lighting and like industrial, home, everything.
We do mostly residential lighting for homes, high-end homes.
Yeah. Nice. And so you ran that business, and talk about the partnership and tell us a bit about that story again, because I know there's some
absolutely
good stuff.
It's quite a story. So we had to
be honest. You look like whatever it was, you're on the other side of it.
That's for sure. So we actually came out of a big family business. We had started in 2000. Actually, it was 1999 by the time that started. And my father-in-law was really, really strong financially. And he was able to take a bankrupt business and take it onto the Toronto Stock Exchange, which is pretty unheard of, taking a bankrupt business and taking it public. And over 7 years, he raised a lot of money, and he was able to bring the business to 50 million in revenue very quickly, mostly through mergers and acquisitions. I joined that business in 2004 as a national sales manager and started learning the ins and outs of a public company, which are quite the adventure. And then in 2006, things started becoming a little more challenging. Then the recession hit, as you know, in 2007, 2008, and a couple of bad moves. And all of a sudden, this beautiful business that the family had built came crashing down all within a year. It was a very, very sad story for the family, very challenging time. And, through the ashes, as a phoenix does, my brother-in-law and I were able to revive, 3 of the divisions and take them and start them over again. And we basically brought all the employees back that we could and started from scratch, putting our homes on, second liens and second mortgages and just taking a chance and going all in. The one thing we had learned at that point is that we didn't want to create a business that was, high flying and super duper swinging for the fences. We wanted to build a conservative business that was going to grow profitably, which I know is something that you and I tell our clients a lot. How are you going to do profitable growth and not just growth for the sake of growth, which I think is really important. And so we had a lot of success in that business. And funny enough, Bill, in 2013, we implemented scaling up in the business because we had hit a wall at that point. I mean, we had no more new products being developed. I always like to tell this story where we had 2 employees who were both doing customer service / reception at the same time. And when the phone would ring, it was right in between them, and they would just stare at the phone. These are customers calling us, and neither one would answer because they hated each other, and neither one wanted to be a receptionist. And that was when we really realized we might have the wrong people in the wrong seats here, the way we're building this business. And so we actually hired a really cool coach, Cleo, who's still a great coach today, as you know. She's amazing. Yeah, so she coached us for 6 years. And it's been an amazing journey. The business has grown, well into the 8 figures. It's doing really, really well again today. But I was feeling, pretty unhappy in my last couple of years at the business. Not just with the stress that entrepreneurs live, but really based on the fact that, I was struggling a little bit to have my passion and my vision come through everything I was doing. And so, it's tough because you're in a family business and you want to, support the family and you want to be there. My business partner is my brother-in-law. He's a fantastic business person, super smart. But at one point I just felt that, he has a vision and I need to support his vision. And I'm not happy in all of this. And so to most people's shock, I left the main operations of the business, but now I'm coaching my own business, which is totally bizarre, but it works for us really well, actually. And that's what led on to my journey to become, a certified scaling up coach.
So how did the unhappiness show up? What did you notice, or how did it manifest itself? What would we see about you in that time?
So I'm a very high energy person. I've been diagnosed with an insane positivity bias by a doctor. And that might sound really amazing, but it's actually not, because what happens is when you're on either end of the spectrum, whether it's positive or negative, you have a lot of issues. So because I'm such a high positivity bias, I don't see any blind spots. So I'll just assume that everything's just incredible and amazing all the time and that there's no issues, So it takes a lot to get me frazzled and into that unhappy state. But I was just starting to find that the day-to-day was bringing so much heaviness, and I lost my sense of purpose and I lost my sense of direction. I really didn't know what I was trying to accomplish on a day-to-day. I could not figure it out. And it was no one's fault, really. Sometimes things like this just happen organically. And for me, it was really detrimental to the point where, I really threw myself into the book to kind of figure out what was going on here, picked up some mentors, started doing a lot of meditation, to get out of this funk, because I got to the point where I did not feel like going to work anymore. I mean, it was really at that point, and people were noticing it around me.
Interesting. Well, so what did you do to get yourself out of that?
There was a lot of steps. The first step was really taking a huge step back. And, this is something that I think is very important for entrepreneurs to do, is to really say, okay, do a bit of introspection, get a hold of your emotions and your feelings, and, do a bit of a check-in on, are things going well? Are you overly stressed out? Are you taking that out on your family and your friends? Are you really sleeping properly? Are you eating properly? If you see those signs, which you start accepting as normal way of being, you gotta change things up. So, I did a pretty dramatic shift in my sleeping habits and my, overall meditation habits. I started visualizing. So I found myself a vision coach, actually, who helped me put together an amazing vision for myself of what I actually wanted to do, and figure out my passion. I don't know if you've heard of the ikigai concept, the sense, the reason for being, which a lot of people know about from the Japanese culture. That was another exercise that I did to really figure out, is this business what I want to do for the next, I've been in this for 11 years. Do I want to be full-time in this business for the next 11? And, it really showed me that, looking through my passions, I really, really cared a lot about helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses. And there was this awesome opportunity and avenue to do that while still helping this amazing business that we've built together, push through. So that was, part of the process was saying, kind of getting both the best of both worlds, right? Where I was able to go on this new path, but at the same time, continue helping my brother-in-law and the business move forward also.
So I hear visioning and choice, like creating a vision and then choosing what parts of it. And then I hear altering your approach or path, the way you work with your partners. What else did you do in that time frame?
Absolutely. Yeah. We changed that completely. And it was really a struggle when we were both there and trying to split responsibilities. We had what we call that mom and dad relationship, where people would come in and when they wouldn't find one partner, they just kind of look to the other. And we'd always tell employees, well, wait a second, if you were going to Joey first, why is it that now you're coming to me and I'm a buffer for it? And we couldn't really figure out exactly what we were trying to do. So, we completely flipped the structure on its head, where I said, you know what, you put your vision, I'll help you hire a couple of amazing vice presidents to come in and see your vision through. And I'll provide, the best coaching possible to the business. But yeah, I think it was really about, the big thing I would say, Bill, is eliminating the ego. That was probably the biggest challenge in all of it, because it is a bit of an ego struggle when you're talking about, at the top, who gets to decide, who gets to put their vision through. And you're constantly having that battle, of trying to say, okay, I want it this way, I want it that way. And what happens is I feel you start losing a little bit of objectivity in that process, where you start trying to win instead of doing the right thing for the business or the right thing for the customer. And when I started seeing that happen for, in my own way of being, which has never been my case, I knew that things had to change for sure.
Yeah. So what did you do with your brother? What did you work out there?
With my brother-in-law, it was, it was a long process, but we just worked out the details on figuring out, okay, how can we go about this process? How can we make it so that it's fair for both of us, but we can continue pushing forward the vision, because we've really built this wonderful business. And so it was a lot of compromise and a lot of discussing back and forth. But ultimately, it came down to, a situation that worked for both of us, where, I would step out of the operations, be involved mostly with talent development. So really, I coach the business and I help, with talent and development and leadership. But he really oversees everything that's relating to the vision and the operations at this point.
And what was the meditation? Did you both do meditation? Did the rest of the team, or is that just you? What was that? How did that? Was that related to the visualization, or because
it is
right, a little meditation and then visualization going with that, right?
Absolutely. So I believe in doing both. I think meditation and visualization are actually complementary, although they're not the same thing. And I like to do more meditation in the morning and do more visualization at night. So I like to split the two up. I've helped a lot of my clients implement visualization techniques, and specifically meditation techniques and meditation rooms in their offices. I truly think, Bill, that meditation is probably the least utilized free superpower that entrepreneurs have. I mean, the effects that I see when we implement this in businesses is unbelievable. Just the clarity of vision, the fact of being able to reduce stress, take a step back when there's arguments, not, force upon your opinion. All of these are results of people doing, anywhere as little as 5 minutes of meditation per day.
So the kinds of meditation, when I was a kid, I was given a mantra and taught a TM approach at a very young age. And then later I learned just like a breathing focus and a mindfulness practice to calm and settle. And then guided, like a body scan followed by some kind of guided visualization as another kind of meditation. Do you do all of these, a mix of them? What's your thought on it? Are they all
absolutely good? So many different types that you can do. Obviously, there's probably 100 or 200 types that you can do. There's so many types. The number one thing that I teach people and that I do for myself there's a huge myth out there. Clearing the mind does not exist. And I would really love for the audience to understand that you will never clear your mind. You'll only clear your mind if you go live in a mountain for maybe 30 years. And at the end of those 30 years, you might have a chance to clear your mind. Besides that,
I think I'd be up in there going, well, it's really cold up here right now. I'm kind of hungry. Do I need to pee? Maybe I should go pee right now.
Exactly. And those are the thoughts that come to us every day. And so, there's been different people that have talked about this, like Dan Harris or Sue Schwartz from Unplugged Meditation, where you want to look at it as a mental bicep curl. So the way, Suze explains it is that, say, for example, you're in your meditation and within literally 3 or 4 seconds, you start thinking about, that meal that you want or that person you have to call back. So now you picture that thought that's kind of going away. And then all you do is you bring back your mind to the breathing. And as you see, I'm doing this motion for a reason, which is a bicep curl. So it's a mental bicep curl where that's actually what meditation is. It's the fact of being distracted and then coming back to the breath, for example. So, it's important for people to understand that, because every time I talk to people and they told me they failed at meditation, and I say to them, you cannot actually fail. You understand that there's no failure in meditation? There's actually no failing. It's just maybe not going as well as you hope. But I like to teach people about, the breathing technique. That's a big one. Another one that I do, which you might have heard of, which is really nuts, is the Wim Hof breathing technique. If you've ever heard of this, yeah. So that's, Wim Hof
I haven't studied the Wim Hof directly. I've seen and read descriptions of it. I've seen video of it. It looks to me very much like Kundalini type techniques, right?
Yes,
it looks
absolutely. Yeah. It's exactly like that, where you're really breathing in and breathing out quickly in a motion where you're like, right. And you're doing, 30 of them, and then you're holding your breath at the end. And, within a couple of days, you could be holding your breath for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. I've already got myself up to 4 minutes by just doing that technique. And the thing is that that's one of the best techniques, not only for your immune system, but specifically for clearing that mind a little more. Because when you're doing that technique, honestly, all you can think about is breathing or not breathing, because it's just so intense. And then he combines that with cold shower technique and cold therapy technique. So that's, not for the faint of heart. You got to be ready to do it. Take a cold shower on a winter's day, or go into a cold lake. I'm talking cold, not summer cold. We're talking winter lakes that people are going into with his technique. So,
well, I've done a bit of swimming in the San Francisco Bay here. By a bit, I mean a lot. And especially if you go in the winter, it's pretty cold. It's not as cold as really like a frozen place, but it's pretty cold. And then also the Monterey Bay is also very, very cold water. And at first, I think when I think about like the overwhelming thing, it's almost painful as the cold hits your skin and moves across your body. And then it really it arrests the breathing. And you tense up and do all that thing, getting to a place where you can sort of break through that, accept the cold, center the body does kind of learn it. I know if I haven't been in a while and then I go back, the body takes a minute to remember. Yeah, it's okay. Let all the extremities kind of go numb. You can still use the muscle, pull the heat to the core. But I think there's something definitely that happens. And then at some point, there is a kind of a shift. Like if I've gotten acclimatized and then I start to swim, then maybe like 30 minutes into the swim, very much like a run, I start to get kind of a groove, and then my mind will wander and my feelings will wander. And whether I'm running or doing a long swim like that, the emotions can overcome, and I can find like moving through crying and laughter like really quickly and being in kind of a funny state, right? Like, and then having insights about my business and life and feeling like incredibly abundant and grateful and effective in that time frame.
Absolutely. I think that swimming does that to you, right? I think it's a very scary thing, swimming, in an open water lake. I mean, I don't think there's much that's scarier than that, especially for someone who's not that good at swimming. What's that, sorry?
Visualize sharks.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to think about those. And there are some sharks in some of these places you might have even gone near, there's some crazy fish in there. But yeah, I think what I love about Wim Hof's technique, and people should definitely look him up, is that what he teaches, he has real world science examples about how it works. He's got the world record for sitting in an ice bath. He can sit in an ice bath for an unlimited amount of time and keep his body temperature at the same level, which if you think about it is really crazy. But then he teaches people to do the same. So it's not that he's a freak of nature. He can actually teach you within 4 days how to do the same. So, I mean, that's another unbelievable technique. And we're hearing more and more of these things, right, Bill, about meditation, visualization, these Wim Hof techniques that are all science-based. I like to bring it back to science. I don't like to make it too spiritual, and spiritual is okay. But I think for entrepreneurs and for leaders, they want to hear about their true effects. How is this backed up by actual data? And I think that's important. So, I think that's part of the game as well.
So I spent a few days studying and learning from all kinds of science thought leaders. We have a local center here at Berkeley, the Greater Good Science Center, with Dacker and who am I forgetting? And Emiliana, who run that program. And they did a multi-day thing at the 1440 Multiversity on the science of happiness and brought it together. I spent several days learning about all of the different techniques for being happy and fulfilled, and both the sort of ancient techniques and then how they're rooted in our biology and in brain science. And it was pretty fascinating. But some of it is fairly obvious, like, oh, we know kind of anecdotally some of these things work, and yet it's useful to see, in fact, that it's not just folklore. There's actually science how they work and how they interact with the brain, the emotion, and like that.
Yeah, it's so true what you're saying, Bill. I mean, there's so much science behind it. Let's take, for example, gratitude, which is something that I like to speak a lot about. It sounds so simple. Being thankful for what you have, showing gratitude to other people, showing appreciation. But they've wired people, right? There's all kinds of studies. A lot of the California universities, in fact, as you're right, explaining that when they put people on, looking at their brain waves and seeing the effects of writing, a letter of appreciation to someone and hand delivering it to them, and seeing a few hours later what effect that had on their brains and their minds. They see spikes in all the important chemicals that lead to more happiness and reduced stress. So in that case, why wouldn't you, for example, take 3 to 5 minutes every day and write down the things you're grateful for, or take 2 to 3 minutes in a day and thank someone the right way for something they did for you? I mean, it's very simple tools and techniques, but not a lot of people do it, and I think that's really important. So having a gratitude journal, for example, I think is a must for every person out there, including entrepreneurs, saying, okay, what happened today that I'm grateful for? And I'm sure you can come up with 3 to 5 things. They don't have to be huge. It could be an amazing meal. It could be a phone call with a friend. It could be getting a new order, selling a new product or service. It could be anything, but just write it down every day, and before you know it, your book will be completely full.
So some people are, I know I'm a very inconsistent journaler. Right. There are times that I journal very intensely, especially when I'm working on a key project, thinking about something or whatever. I'll take all kinds of notes and work things out in my head and capture things. And I mean, never refer to them again and like that. And then I also keep places for thoughts that come to me. Like there's a thing called Aqua Notes that I love to recommend. Here's actually one of them from my shower the other day. And I'll have ideas and thoughts when I'm in the shower, and I'll write them down. And then I can and many of them I just throw away. But sometimes, like this one, I brought out because it was suddenly a whole bunch of things came together for me, and I could write it down. There was an inspiration there that came in that moment as I'm, shampooing the hair, washing behind the ears, and that kind of thing. But the journaling I think is really useful. I started at somebody else's prompting. I don't even remember who now, to be thankful for them for a practice of gratitude. And at first it was twice a day. And all I did is I put an appointment, like a 5-10 minute appointment in my calendar. And it said something fancier at one point, but today it just says grateful. So and today I only have one. So towards the end of my day, I have grateful. And I just have one, but I've had this for more than 5 years now. And when that alarm comes up like any other appointment or call or whatever. It's like, oh, grateful. And then I stop even now years later and I go, oh yeah. And I might just acknowledge in my own head, oh, I'm grateful for this. And then other times I'm like, oh, I need to tell them I really appreciate that thing or love that. Or so I may verbalize it sometimes to someone else, or I may just think about it. But whatever the thing is, it has an enormous effect on my moment by moment happiness.
Yeah, that's an amazing. I'm really impressed that you do that, and I shouldn't be surprised because you are someone I know well who goes out there and goes above and beyond. So that's amazing that you do that. So that is an amazing trick for the audience to try. Definitely. Another thing that they can do, very simply, is put alarms on their iPhone for maybe 2 or 3 times per day. You could have gratitude, and you could also do body check-ins, right? So when that alarm goes off, you say, okay, step back, let me check in on my body. Am I stressed out right now? My shoulders crazy tense. Am I freaking out? And just stop everything you're doing for 1 minute and take a moment to reflect. And then obviously, tying that into gratitude is amazing. And again, it just puts things into perspective. It could be as simple as enjoying the view that you have outside of your office, whatever it is, but it really takes time it gives us the opportunity to reduce stress and to really realize that there's more to life than just, constantly trying to beat the man, right? So
I love the grateful practice, especially at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm now like thinking about it and then it creates a nice transition, especially towards the end of my workday as I go into dinner. If I express some gratitude before I have a glass of wine with my dinner or start to cook dinner or move into family time or conversation with my wife or something like that, it's a completely different way to sort of wrap up the day. Appreciating, even if I had some shit happen in the day, right? Like some difficulties, it's really, really useful. And I find even when the day really sucked, there are things to be grateful for, right? I'm still breathing, whatever the case may be. But the interesting thing, to segue back to your partner a little bit, brother, was it?
Brother-in-law. Yeah, it's my wife's brother.
Family related business plus partnering business, aligning visions and roles and things like that. I noticed that so I have a brother who's extraordinarily positive. In fact, it's really hard for him to be negative.
Right.
Right now, you could even consider it a flaw because things will be really bad and he'll stay like super like, well, it's going to be fine. And that kind of thing. And then my dad was diagnosed bipolar, and he would go to the extreme. So he could be super positive, but then he could go really, really dark. And I find I'm mostly above average positive, but I have moments where I can get pretty dark too. Not to the level like the bipolar degree that my dad was, but it's on a spectrum of something. So not stuck in one or the other. But I do think it's kind of healthy because I'll get to a place where I'm tense or I'm really upset or despairing over something, and I'll go, oh, how do I feel right now? And I'm like, wow, I can feel that in my belly, or I can feel that up here, or I can in my neck. And I'll think about where and how I feel it in the body and what thoughts I have about it. And that awareness starts to give some power and separation from it. So at first I am the feeling. I am the emotion and the thoughts associated with it. And then when I notice it, I bring that awareness to it. Then I start to separate from it. It's here and I'm here. And it's a thought or a feeling that I have, and it's not me, right?
Yeah.
I have it and it's still there, but it's not this. It's different from me. I've separated the two by the awareness, right?
Yeah, but that's what you're describing, Bill, is that next level that you've already been able to achieve, which is amazing. And it's being able to separate yourself from your thoughts and your emotions and being able to view them from the outside and saying, well, that emotion does not define me. I'm realizing that it's something different than who I actually am. And the other big thing is to accept it, because that's one thing that we have a hard time is accepting. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be frustrated. You're allowed to be negative sometimes. We're all human beings, right? And if you come to learn how to accept it, okay, I'm in a bad mood right now. It's part of the game. It's fine. Let me get over it. I think that could really help reduce things. I like to teach a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead.
No, finish the thought.
I like to teach people a lot of things about what I call the time anger gap, right? So this is a concept that I've developed, and what I've come to realize by doing all this meditation and all these different things, and I learned something, something interesting when I went to China. I used to go to China every single year in my old business to visit, all the different, things going on, all our suppliers. And people over there, they cut each other off in cars. Like, it's traumatizing. Like, you're just driving and you see a car and you say it's game over. Like, we're dead. Like, we are dying at this moment. And the driver just slows down and lets himself get cut off and doesn't honk. And I asked one of the drivers, I said, I don't understand. Like, how are you? But for him, he says, well, this is just part of the game. Like, we all cut each other off every minute. So now that's just how it goes. And what it made me realize is that, in North America, we have road rage, right? Like, if someone cuts you off, it's game over. Like, all hell breaks loose. You start imagining the baseball bat you're going to pull out and you're going to do something crazy and slash the tires of this person. But we fail to realize that, 2 minutes later, that car is gone. And, we're still upset about something. We're never going to see that person or that car again, literally. Like, very likely we will never remember this encounter. And so, this is something I've been trying to teach my clients and my kids too. It's kind of the idea behind, okay, you're upset. Now you have a choice. You can be upset for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, or you could actually be upset for 2 minutes. Or you know what? What if you were able to only be upset for 2 seconds? And this concept really came to me when they asked the Dalai Lama. They asked him in an interview. They said, "Mr. Dalai Lama, how do you never get upset? Like, it's unbelievable. You have such an amazing control on your emotions." And he laughs a lot, as you probably know. And he started laughing. He said, "You think that I never get upset?" As the Dalai Lama, he says, "I see poor children around the world not being fed. I see abusive people, violence everywhere." He says, "I'm upset 99% of the time, but I know how to get over it and to move on and to do the right things, to put things on the right track." So I think that's an important lesson for entrepreneurs to say, you're upset about something. Listen, you could be upset for 2 days. You could be upset for 2 minutes. Either way, you got to move on. So try to reduce that time anger gap.
So I love that you brought it back there, because when you were talking there, I was reminded of something that I think I remember it vaguely being a quote of the Dalai Lama, but I'm not actually sure of this. But I believe it was he who said that something to the effect that suffering is a function of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And the extent that there's pain, right? There's pain that's real. But the suffering is the optional part. And the suffering is because you resist the pain. And I was reminded of that as you were talking earlier, and then you brought it back to him. But it occurred to me that this business of self-awareness and inquiry is also a precursor to the acceptance. So it's very hard to accept something if I'm not really conscious of it. And so the first thing I do is I bring self-awareness. Wow, I'm really pissed off right now. Well, I'm really triggered, or I'm really upset, or I'm really like whatever. However, if I notice that I'm in an agitated or upset or activated state, I notice it. I bring awareness to it. I'm like, what's going on with me? And what is it there that's so upsetting for me? And I kind of look into it, right? I examine it, and only in sort of like diving into it can I then accept it and then get the separation for it. So I think that's what's different is mostly we try to suppress it, numb it, like so we drink something or we escape or we do something to get our mind off on something else, and that might be good for a minute. But if we don't do it, it's lurking there underneath, right? Our brain's super powerful and it's holding it there for us to deal with. And I think that's the issue. Like, if you keep, and then you try to put on a smiley face and walk around and whatever, and I'm just going to be happy now, but you're really not happy, you could say, and I was taught that that's like icing on a mud pie, right? Like, it's crap underneath, but you've like dressed it up with your smiley face and you're happy-go-lucky, or you've drunk some alcohol or done whatever your vice is. And then it's still there under the surface. So actually, like, going into it lets you move through it, because I examine it. I say, wow, look how pissed I am. Look how upset I am with them and or this situation or whatever it is. And I feel it here. And I allow myself to sort of experience all aspects of it, the physical and the emotional and the whole thing and the thoughts and ideas around it. And then that is actually the beginning of the acceptance of it. I'm allowing it to be. And I'm beginning to separate myself from it. And now there's far less suffering. There's actually some choice and some opportunity. Mark Wallenick chimes in that grudges are powerful in business. They provoke and motivate. And I think people have accomplished huge things. I remember my wife telling me a story about a competitor very early in launching her business who pissed her off with something. And that really drove her to accomplish some great things. I've heard great stories from artists and from other people like recording artists who said, oh, a teacher told me once I was never, and then that drove me. And I coached a woman years ago who was an actual rocket scientist and straight up real one, lovely human.
Love it.
And she said that one of her teachers early in life, or college professor or teacher, said and sort of laughed at the fact that she wanted to study science and engineering, and like it was inappropriate for a girl, right? Mm-hmm. And she said it pissed her off so much, and it drove her to do and to be super awesome and do the things. So it's useful, except then it can kind of create a toxic environment. So it's great to a point, but then if you don't resolve it, you get like you were, where you're just miserable, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm sure, you've probably seen and everybody's talking about The Last Dance, the documentary with the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. That was one thing that he talked about. He would invent stories that, he's being, disrespected, and you would have all this huge pent up anger, and he would go out and use it on the court. And it would be funny. His opponents would say, oh, I never did anything to him, but he would pinpoint, fake stories in the news and things like that and use them to motivate him. So I definitely think there is a place to use, that anger for sure. I think that is something that you can use.
Super skillful and conscious kind of decision, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I've used it myself. I'm not a crazy, amazing athlete, but I've done a half Ironman in my day and played some competitive soccer. And, I've definitely been able to use anger sometimes to fuel my passions. And I love Mark's comment here that we're seeing on the screen. He's saying you're going to get a lot of that in business, and how are you going to use it, and you shouldn't be taking it home, which I think is obviously a great point that he's making. I think, like you said, you have to be able to use it the right way and motivate yourself and your team the right way. One of the best things that ever happened in our business was a competitor who copied our entire product line and literally took the 200 products and put them all at $1 less than us. It was just shocking to us. But that happened just before we started scaling up. It was actually one of the main reasons we started scaling up. And it just transformed our business and took our business from here and leveled us up so high because we were so angry at that competitor. And we did everything possible to become innovative and crazy. And we were just, we really did fuel anger in the right way. And it became a theme in the company where it was like, okay, let's beat out this competitor, at all costs. And we ended up coming out, much stronger than them at the end of the day. So it can be used the right way.
Right. But it's helpful if there's some consciousness. By consciousness, I don't mean anything too kooky. I mean awareness, right? Self-awareness. I'm I'm self-aware. I'm not just acting unconsciously. I was reminded of something. I saw a BBC story. It was like Oxford or some other university study of happiness, and some big so is a fairly substantial feature about a significant study, and they were looking at how relatively happy people were in practices and what circumstances they were tied to and that kind of thing, and I forget all the details. The biggest thing that I remember is that happiness was not tied to anything that you and I might think of. So money, affluence, actual profound poverty, suffering, those kinds of things were completely independent of happiness. So you could live in a miserable shack and be hungry and be diseased in a slum in India or favela or like whatever, and you could be in fact happy as self-reported, and displaying the markers of a very wealthy person who might be satisfied with their business, or you could be a freaking billionaire and be miserable. And I only think that, like, a great champagne, a private jet, and a luxury hotel is a great place to nurse your unhappiness.
That's it. You could be really unhappy in a wonderful setting with great food.
Right? Like you then go deep into drugs or other kinds of things, and then pretty soon, like you've tossed away your life and all that. So you can be unhappy no matter the circumstances.
Absolutely. It's so true what you're saying, Bill. There's been multiple studies on this. It's a very scary thing when you think about it, because this, you're actually leading into the exact premise of the book, like the main reason I wrote the book. And I don't know if you know Warren Rustand, he's a wonderful business person. Yeah. And, he's my mentor, and he had really told me, he said, what is it you think you're going to achieve one day when you sell your business, or do you actually believe that's when you'll be happy? Like you're going to sell, and then the selling of the business will make you happy. And that's the type of thing that I see entrepreneurs do all the time. When X happens, then I'll be happy. When Y happens, then I'll be able to be less stressed and things like that. But the reality is that this journey you're on is probably going to be long. And if you're not, happy and enjoying the journey, then you're probably missing out on most of your life. Recent studies have shown that we only spend about 5% of our time in the present moment. 5%, so of our waking moments. Most of it is spent in the past, thinking about things that we should have done, or looking ahead to the future. And yes, you and I as coaches, we teach our clients to look ahead to the future and to plan their future. But at the same time, how often are we actually appreciating the present moment? And to me, that's where the real measure of happiness happens. Because if you're in your present moment and you're already thinking about something else, it means that you can't truly be happy at that point. So it's really finding a way to say, okay, in this exact moment, okay, you and I are talking on this podcast. Am I actually appreciating this present moment that I'm in right now? Or am I already thinking about it when we hang up and go downstairs, I'm going to have dinner, I'm going to make a phone call, I'm going to catch up on emails. If you're constantly in that mode, which most of us are, which is really what I realize most of us are, that's a very dangerous place to be. And that's where this entire idea of consciousness, meditation, taking a step back, putting your alarm at a certain point in the day, you can actually then give yourself tricks to just be living the present moment, which is what is the issue. I mean, we really need to get back to the present moment. Most of us are not in it.
That's really terrific. There was a particularly apt phrase popularized by the EST movement back in the 70s, be here now, which was about like not tuning out, but actually being fully present and aware. It's super powerful and especially relevant in that escapist time. I love that you mentioned Warren. Warren Rustand and I, along with Tanya Chernova and Rich Mulholland, will be leading a multi-day event for the European region of the EO organization next May, assuming that we find some relief from the COVID quarantines and things like that. Late May in Santorini in Greece, and we'll be leading a 2.5 day about designing your life, creating a purpose and plan for your whole life. And we'll be dealing with a lot of these things. So shameless plug for that. There may still be some tickets available. I think it's largely sold out now again. It sold out once and they rescheduled it. I think it's sold out, but go look for EO Unlimited or EO Unlimited Santorini if you're a member of the EO organization and looking for.
I love that you're doing that, Bill. I love that you're doing that. I think that's super necessary. We don't do enough of it. I swear to you, no joke. I spoke with Richard Mulholland for an hour this morning. So that is just a pure, strange, one of those crazy, weird coincidences that you mentioned. But Richie's got his head, perfectly around all these topics, and Warren obviously is the guru behind all of it. And I know you're really good at it too. So
Warren's leading the keynote, and Rich is emceeing the event, and Tanya and I are designing all of the exercises that'll wrap through in and after each speaker and through the group time and the music. And we're going to have movement and mindfulness and a whole bunch of practices in the thing. And you can't location like Santorini. So
yeah, Santorini is beautiful. That's amazing. I love that you're doing that, Bill. Awesome.
So let's talk about, you applied this with some mindfulness and meditation, that kind of thing, with a client, right? Tell that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I work with a lot of clients, as you do. First thing I always try to check out is, first of all, quality of the team. So how good is the team around them? And then I quickly come to realize, what their stress levels are at. I don't know if this happens for you, but a lot of times I get hired by CEOs to coach them one-on-one. And we always eventually end up getting to doing scaling up, because once you start figuring out what the issues really are, usually it's in the business and usually it's with the entire company. So it usually is one that leads into the other. But yeah, I was working with a really amazing CEO of a super fast growing company, and I'm completely stressed out, totally freaking out all the time. And, really didn't believe in these type of techniques, didn't think that it was something that could, help him or his business. And so, we started doing it together where, in sessions together, we would actually try and do the meditation. And eventually, he got to a point where he really, really started feeling super comfortable doing it on his own. And that was when he decided that he wanted to implement the actual meditation practice at his office. And so, he did a theme around this. It was a quarterly theme, as we often do in scaling up. I find them very powerful. I know Andy Bailey has like his book of themes, which is really amazing. I think he's got to add this one in, though. I don't think he has a meditation one in there. So I'm going to mention that to him. But so, it was a case where we brought it to the employees. We did, a full half-day session teaching them how to do the techniques. He bought yoga mats and, those little meditation cushions for everybody around the company. Had all kinds of, labels on the walls and all kinds of, posters, promoting it. And, he's really said that it's been one of the most transformational things that they've done in their business to this day, is allowing people to take time at any point that they want, either go outside or to go into the, special room that they've designated to do meditation, and they've integrated yoga as well. So they've done the combination of both. And he says that stress levels have gone down dramatically, that employee morale has gone up. The ENPS scores have been much, much higher since they've done that, 6 months ago. So, it's a real thing that could be done by any business. It literally doesn't cost anything, literally. There's nothing, there's no real cost associated to it. So, it's something that I'm starting to encourage every single one of my clients to do. Most of them look at me like I'm crazy because I actually do meditation in our scaling up sessions. So, the way I look at it, Bill, is that let's say we're doing a super intense strategic module on core values, for example. And now I got everybody thinking about core values. They're going crazy. They come up with all these ideas. Now I send them on break. And they go on the break. And what do they do during the break? They start checking their emails, right? And so now they're checking emails, they're making phone calls, and they're getting themselves stressed. So now they come back into the meeting, most of the time a little bit stressed, unfocused. And now I'm going to ask them to come up with their big, hairy, audacious goal. Like, good luck with that, right? So I always say to them, listen, we need to take a step back. We absolutely need to do, either meditation or a breathing exercise, a Wim Hof technique, which I'll even do with clients. And then we're going to jump into the next strategic module. And it really has quite a profound impact for them, honestly.
I think that's really great. Like music, movement, fresh air, stretching, not even like the hard yoga. We all know people that do the hard yoga, the sweaty yoga, the hot yoga. They'll do the intense yoga. They'll do just like really, really light, just like move your body a little bit. Go take a walk in the middle of the day. Get people to dance around a minute. Things like that can make a real difference.
Huge difference. Right? We do that all the time.
Yeah. That's really great. So before I tell you about the book and where to get Shawn's information, I want to remind everyone that if the show helped you, please like it, share it, subscribe to it. You can share it as a preview party or a premiere and get it going out there and bring others to it. If you subscribe either wherever you get your podcast or on our website at scalingcoach.com, you'll get them every week there's always a topic or something that we've got. I want to give special thanks to Vern Harnish, author and creator of the Scaling Up Framework, and to Lucy Summers, who produces our show and schedules you and gets things ready. Our audio is edited by Albert Burge at Podfly Productions. The show notes are written and compiled by Ein Kodina and proofread by Tim McGowan. I want to thank everyone again for listening and tell you to keep scaling up. If you want to get more information about Shawn and the book, you will find that at ShawnJohal.com. The book is The Happy Leader, ShawnJohal.com. Thanks, Shawn, for joining us today and talking all about getting happy.
Thank you, Bill. Really appreciate the time. It was awesome. And thank Lucy as well. She was great.
Thanks so much. Let's let the music then play us out, since we said that makes a difference. It makes me happy anyway.
It does. I love it.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next week.